I want to jump to Phoenix and Minnesota. Let's be positive here. Let's be positive. I got just two very simple questions. For you guys in this series, what was the most impressive thing about Anthony Edwards? And what was the most impressive thing about Minnesota's defense?
I'll go Anthony Edwards first. It was the playmaking for me. It was the balance he had against a playoff game plan to make the right decisions, to make the right reads. Phoenix wanted to show multiple bodies against him, show early help. He took that challenge on and understood when to drive, force the nail to commit, get a kick, when to attack and transition early. Had the blend once they started showing switches. Nurkic is putting two on the ball. I'm making these corner skip passes. I'm making these reads. I thought that was so important because the shot making was key, and we saw him bring it home multiple times in that series. But if he has that balance, now Minnesota can make plays. And I think the fact that he was willing to make those opened everything up for everyone else. And it made it a real team swarm attack to where Phoenix wanted to take him away. Minnesota made them pay, and then you still had to deal with Anthony Edwards later on in the game. I just thought it was really impressive for him to handle that in this playoff run.
Steve pretty much nailed mine, so I guess I'll go Minnesota defense. I think it's the overall screen navigation for me. And you saw that particularly with Jaden McDaniels, and you saw it with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You also saw with Anthony Edwards when he was locked in. Mike Conley, I feel, had a good defensive series. You did have like KD shooting over the top, but that's just a height thing. But I just think they did a really good job of making sure Phoenix didn't have the automatics. They didn't have a lot of two on the ball outside of when they just wanted to dial up a blitz. It wasn't a lot of this guy gets clipped. Now we have to over-rotate, and here are the swing sequences for the Phoenix offense. So I think I start with the screen navigation there. And just the job that, again, Jaden and Nickeil did on Devin Booker in particular. Book finally broke out with a big scoring performance in Game 4. Can I just very quickly read you the pick and roll numbers by game for Devin Booker in this series?
You can.
On possessions featuring a Devin Booker pick and roll. Game 1, 0.8 points per possession. Game 2, 0.58 points per possession. Game 3, 0.67 points per possession. It then exploded into Game 4, roughly 1.4 points per possession. A lot of great shot making. And even with that, it didn't feel like Book was blowing by Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Book was just blowing by Jaden McDaniels. Like there was some tough buckets sprinkled in there as well. I just think the cumulative effect of that played had a large toll on what Phoenix wanted to do offensively. I was just really impressed with that portion of
it. Whoever wins, and we'll touch on this briefly in a second. Whoever wins this Denver Lakers series, they're in for a dogfight. There's a real identity on the defensive end. Whether it's being into the basketball, screen navigation. You briefly touched on it, but I think they're as good as anyone right now in terms of once they have to be in rotation, and it's not often because Gobert so often is back protecting the rim. But when he is out in space, they do a great job rotating. They really do. They cover for each other, and outside of Conley, all these guys rotating have size and length, right? That's important. It's similar to Denver when they're in rotation when Jokic is up, or if there is a blow by. All these guys outside of Jamal Murray have size and length. That stuff matters. Steve, you brought up Anthony Edwards bringing it home. In the fourth quarter in this series, he averaged 10.5 points a game on 67, 100 shooting splits. That really stands out. Karl-Anthony Towns shot 53% from three for the series. Gobert, as the contesting defender, 17 of 48 for Phoenix, 35% from the floor with him as the contesting defender. And then the other one, and it's just shocking, is the big three for the Phoenix Suns when they were on the floor, minus 51 over 4 games. Is it fair? Is it fair to say that this was a failed experiment for the Phoenix Suns? Like, and what I mean by that, this is not me questioning Kevin Durant. It's not me questioning Devin Booker. It's not me talking anything about legacy. It's not me questioning who Bradley Beal is as a player. but they feel a little hamstrung. And the idea of running this group back with little to no optionality for any sort of roster construction, I don't know. It seems like a scary proposition going into next year.
I guess in a literal sense, yes, but this also just feels like this was the other side of making the move. Because I think you saw what the high end was when Phoenix was finally healthy. And
we saw it multiple times. So 100%. Yeah. No.
In fact, we saw it during the regular season series against Minnesota, and why a lot of people felt like this was a bad matchup for Minnesota, because even if you defend us well, we can just shot make anyway. And if we downsize, we can just spread you out in a way that we're going to generate a good shot every time down. But I think the obvious risk heading into the deal was, how healthy is everyone going to be? Because KD's missed time in each of the last few years. Bradley Beal's had the health concerns. And because you're adding the Beal salary plus the no trade clause that's going to factor into the offseason, you don't have the pick. You don't have the pick access to move. You don't have a lot of mid-sized salaries to move. Like, the one that you're going to have at this point is like Grayson Allen or Nurk, and I'm not sure what their trade value is going to be. So, like, it's a failure because, I mean, they lost in the first round. But as far as they super underwhelmed, what were they thinking, et cetera, like, this just felt like the natural, if it goes wrong, is going to look like this outcome. So I don't really have like super
I think
strong.
That's very much a both can be true answer, and I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think it's the gamble. I think the toughest part is the roster construction piece, because we've seen these teams make these big trades and year one goes like this. Year two looks a lot different, looking at Dallas, Minnesota. How do they take what the part of the failure as far as what do we need to add? How do we enhance our offensive attack? What are our best lineups? That portion of it is going to be tougher for them because of the roster construction piece. They need more ball movement. They need more player movement. They need sets to enhance and use the versatility of their big three. But when you look at it, you go KD at the 5. Okay, what are you running? Who's out there with them? Our defense is treating these guys as shooters or non-shooters. And I think that's where it gets to, I think you know what you need, but how do you go get it?
That's fair.